Edward Miller, a millionaire who was always absent, returns home after months of traveling the world on business. At his side is Isabella Collins, his glamorous and ambitious fiancée, ready to conquer not only his heart but also the prestige of high society. But inside that luxurious mansion lives Clara, his 7-year-old daughter, raised almost entirely alone, who finds in Marcella, the maid, the love and care her father never provided. The reunion promises to change everything, but not in the way Edward imagines. And before you discover how secrets, intrigues, and betrayals will forever transform this family's life, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single chapter of this story. And tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching us? I want to know just how far this emotional story is reaching. Edward Miller crossed the mansion's main door with firm steps, carrying the weight of the distance that had kept him away from his own home. After months traveling for business, the millionaire returned with the imposing presence of someone who had always been absent. The silence of the corridors contrasted with his sudden arrival, as if every wall had been waiting for this long-delayed return. By his side appeared Isabella Collins, his glamorous fiancée, with her proud gaze and impeccable posture. Dressed with sophistication, she carried an aura of ambition, calculated and undeniable, capable of drawing attention wherever she went. Her charm reflected a woman used to refined environments, where every word was chosen with precision and every gesture carefully measured. Inside the mansion, 7-year-old Clara Miller watched her father with timid eyes. She had grown up almost entirely without his presence, learning to endure long days and quiet nights. Her childhood was marked by absence, and even surrounded by material comfort, she longed for the genuine affection that only a father could give. In this setting, Marcella Brown played an essential role. More than a housemaid, she had cared for Clara since her very first steps. It was Marcella who cradled the girl's tears, told bedtime stories, and offered the attention she needed. Her devotion went far beyond the boundaries of a simple job. Edward, used to thinking only in business terms, did not notice the depth of that bond. For him, returning home meant resuming a paused routine, as if gifts or novelties were enough to fill the void left by his absence. Yet the reunion with his daughter revealed that something much greater was at stake. Isabella, attentive to every detail, followed the scene in silence. Her calculating eyes rested uneasily on Clara and Marcella. In her vision, any strong connection that did not include her could quickly turn into an obstacle for the plans she was already designing alongside Edward. The environment became a mixture of reunion and tension. Clara longed for a present father. Marcella sought to protect the child, and Isabella was already silently plotting her next moves. Edward remained at the center, unaware of the invisible forces pulling these three women in different directions. And so, among unpacked suitcases and restrained smiles, Edward's return was not merely the end of a trip, but the beginning of a story that would soon transform into a battlefield of invisible struggles inside that luxurious house. A grand dinner was approaching, and with it, new conflicts were about to unfold. The mansion gained a new rhythm when Edward decided to organize a luxurious dinner to introduce Isabella to society. The order was clear. Every detail had to reflect grandeur and perfection. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the corridors as servants carried linen tablecloths, polished silverware, and sparkling crystal glasses. It was as if every corner of the house breathed expectation for the approaching event. In charge of the tasks was Marcella Brown, whose skill in managing the work proved indispensable. Alongside the housekeeper, Mrs. Eleanor Davis, she directed the staff with precision. While one gave instructions about flowers and arrangements, the other checked if the cutlery was properly aligned. The atmosphere felt like a meticulous rehearsal for a performance that could not fail. Clara, as always, sought to follow Marcella in every movement. She ran through the hallways, carrying small napkins as if she were part of something grand. For the girl, the presence of her caretaker was more important than all the luxury around her. In her eyes, the party held no greater sparkle than the simple affection she received. The main hall began to transform. Chandeliers were lit, reflecting their glow across the polished floors. The carefully chosen floral arrangements brought vibrant colors to the sophisticated setting. It was a combination of refinement and order, designed to impress the city's most influential guests. With each detail, the sense grew stronger that nothing there was casual. Meanwhile, the servants murmured among themselves about the grandeur of the event. Each knew that a mistake could be costly, for Edward demanded perfection. The atmosphere carried both respect and tension, as if everyone were taking part in a silent test. The preparation for the dinner went beyond decoration. It was a demonstration of power. Marcella, despite so many responsibilities, never failed to look at Clara with affection. Between adjusting plates, she offered the girl a discreet smile. That constant bond became evident, as if an invisible thread connected them. Clara, in turn, seemed calmer simply by staying near her. Isabella followed everything from a distance, observing the team's efforts with careful eyes. Her calculating gaze was not fixed on the details of flowers or glasses, but on the bonds between people. At every moment, she evaluated who held more influence over Clara and over the household. Her mind was already weaving thoughts that extended beyond the festive night. And so, among gleaming glasses, flawless flowers, and firm orders, the mansion prepared for the dinner that would mark a turning point in everyone's fate. But not all knew that, behind the shine of the party, a secret about to be revealed would completely change the course of that night. In the quiet corridors of the mansion, Marcella walked attentively, checking whether all the details for the dinner were in place. That was when she heard muffled voices coming from the smaller hall. Curious, she approached slowly and recognized the firm tone of Isabella, speaking in confidence to an influential friend. Marcella's heart raced, sensing that this was not just casual conversation. Isabella, with her calculating air, revealed her plans without hesitation. She stated clearly, "As soon as I get married, Clara will be sent to a boarding school. I don't want a child interfering with my plans." The coldness of her words cut through the air like a blade. It was proof that the elegance everyone admired concealed ruthless and ambitious intentions. Marcella stood still, fighting the urge to intervene immediately. Yet the affection she felt for Clara spoke louder, compelling her to step forward. Entering the room, she declared with a firm voice, "The love that raises a child is worth more than any surname or fortune." Her courage echoed through the space, shattering the atmosphere of conspiracy. Isabella's friend reacted with shock, but it was the fiancé who revealed the most fury. Her once flawless expression twisted into disdain, and with cutting words she began to humiliate Marcella in front of those nearby. Isabella could not tolerate being confronted, especially by someone she believed should remain silent. Marcella, though wounded by the cruel insults, held her posture upright. Her dignity did not allow her to remain silent in the face of such injustice. Clara, not fully understanding what was happening, watched the scene from behind a half-open door, her eyes brimming with tears. The bond between them was too strong for the girl not to feel the sting of her protector's humiliation. The environment, which should have been a stage for celebration, now became charged with tension. Isabella, offended, began to see Marcella as a real threat to her ambitions. The idea of getting rid of her was no longer just an impulse but a decision. The icy look in Isabella's eyes made it clear that nothing would go unpunished. The night moved forward, and though the mansion's lights shone brighter than ever, the shadows of intrigue spread through its corridors. The servants whispered quietly about the episode, but none dared to take a stand. Every word from Isabella seemed to poison the air, weaving a web of power and fear. Thus, the secret revealed not only exposed Isabella's coldness, but also sparked an invisible war inside the house. And in the days to come, this battle would gain new weapons as the fiancé's plan began to take shape in an even more dangerous way. After the clash with Marcella, Isabella could no longer disguise the rage burning inside her. In the silence of her room, before a gilded mirror, she studied her own reflection and rehearsed new gestures of control. Her thoughts circled around a single goal: eliminating the maid's influence over Clara. To her, that bond was a threat that had to be cut at the root. Determined, Isabella decided to act with cold precision. She began to insinuate to Edward that Marcella was insolent, a woman who overstepped the limits of her position. She chose her words carefully, always in a delicate tone, as if concerned about the order of the household. Little by little, without Edward realizing it, she planted seeds of doubt that began to take root in his mind. Edward, still weary from the routine of constant travel, listened to his fiancée's remarks with distracted attention. He failed to notice that he was being manipulated by subtle arguments. Isabella knew how to exploit this skillfully. She presented herself as the guardian of harmony while, behind the smile, she schemed against the truest loyalty in the house. As the days passed, Isabella intensified the poison of her words. She retold small incidents, twisting them convincingly until Edward began to believe her. According to her narrative, Marcella was not only disrespectful but a threat to the order and future of the family. The psychological game was being played silently yet effectively. Meanwhile, John Carter, the family's loyal chauffeur, watched events unfold with growing concern. From the driver's seat, he noticed the tension in glances, the cut-off conversations, the whispers filled with intent. Though his instincts urged him to warn Edward, fear of losing his job kept him silent. It was the dilemma between loyalty and survival. To complete her strategy, Isabella decided to create evidence. A valuable necklace mysteriously disappeared, and soon whispers arose suggesting that Marcella might be involved. It was a risky move, but Isabella trusted in her ability to persuade. The sparkle of the hidden jewel became the centerpiece of a cruel game. Marcella, unaware of the danger drawing closer, continued her duties faithfully, staying always near Clara. For her, the greatest concern was the girl's well-being, not the silent intrigues slowly poisoning the house. Her calm demeanor contrasted with the shadows gathering around her. Ready to engulf her without warning, the board was set. Isabella had the plan. Edward began to doubt, and Clara remained innocent before the coming storm. Soon the dinner would transform the intrigue into spectacle, revealing to all the venom so carefully prepared by the fiancé. The night arrived with grandeur, and the mansion was ready to welcome its guests. Luxury cars parked at the illuminated entrance, bringing in figures from high society. Inside, the main hall glowed with imposing chandeliers, sparkling glasses, and the soft music of a piano. The air was charged with anticipation, as if everyone sensed that something remarkable was about to unfold. Isabella moved gracefully through the hall as the perfect hostess. Her elegant posture and calculated smile drew admiration from all, ensuring she was the center of attention. She greeted each guest with measured charm, keeping absolute control of the evening. Yet behind that flawless appearance, her plan was already in motion. Edward, dressed in an impeccable suit, fulfilled his role as host alongside his fiancée. He spoke with businessmen and politicians, exuding confidence, unaware that he was merely a pawn in a carefully orchestrated game. For him, the evening symbolized the beginning of a new chapter, one where society would validate his union with Isabella. Meanwhile, Marcella, confined to her duties, maintained her calm and dignity. She moved quietly among the tables, adjusting details and ensuring Clara felt comfortable. Her simple gestures stood in stark contrast to the grandeur of the setting, yet they were the only thing capable of soothing the girl's heart. Clara, in her light-colored dress, observed everything with curious eyes. Though fascinated by the lights and the guests, her attachment to Marcella was undeniable. At every moment she sought her presence, clinging to small interactions that gave her a sense of safety. For her, the evening only had meaning because her protector was near. At the height of the reception, Isabella set her plan into motion. A murmur spread when a valuable necklace was discovered in Marcella's room. The accusation was immediate, and every gaze turned toward the maid. The silence that followed was heavier than words, as though fate itself had been sealed in that instant. Edward, consumed by fury, did not hesitate. Before everyone, he accused Marcella of theft and declared her immediate dismissal. The scene was public, cruel, and merciless. Beside him, Isabella maintained a mask of indignation, while inside she celebrated the flawless execution of her scheme. Clara, unable to contain her despair, ran to Marcella and clung to her tightly. Through tears, she cried out, "Please, don't take my mom away." The child's plea echoed through the hall, shattering the evening's grandeur and leaving everyone in shock. But for Isabella, it was merely another step achieved in her ruthless strategy for power. After the humiliating scene at the dinner, Marcella was escorted to the main door by John Carter, the family chauffeur. She walked in silence, tears streaming down her face while Clara's desperate cries still echoed behind her. The servants watched from a distance, powerless in the face of injustice. With each step, the mansion seemed colder and darker. John, though quiet, revealed compassion in his eyes. They reflected the indignation he dared not voice. As he delivered Marcella into the dark night, he opened the car door with care as though trying to soften a pain he could not erase. Their farewell was silent, yet filled with meanings understood only by the two of them. Inside the mansion, Clara locked herself in her room. She refused to eat, to speak, or to leave. She clutched her toys as though they could replace Marcella. But nothing filled the emptiness. Her tears turned the night into a continuous lament, echoing through the silent corridors. Meanwhile, the servants exchanged glances heavy with indignation. The gardener, Samuel Green, muttered words of revolt, while the cook, Mary Johnson, discreetly wiped her tears. Despite their sorrow, fear kept them silent. The threat of losing their jobs loomed over them like a constant shadow. In the master bedroom, Isabella displayed a discreet smile, satisfied with the outcome. To her, the victory was not only over Marcella, but over any obstacle that might compromise her ambitions. The complicit silence reigning among the servants was further proof that her strategy had succeeded. Edward, still under the influence of anger, remained distant. He ignored his daughter's pleas and the visible sorrow in the corridors. His mind was filled with the conviction that he had done the right thing. He did not realize that in that very moment he was breaking his daughter's heart and alienating the loyalty of those who served him. Clara, curled up in her bed, whispered Marcella's name softly. Her murmurs were almost prayers pleading for the woman to return. Each time the door stayed closed, her sobs grew stronger. The absence of the figure she loved most turned her room into an emotional prison. And so, the night dragged on in despair, a child locked in grief, a woman cast out in tears, and a mansion steeped in tense silence. Yet fate was already preparing new consequences for that cruel choice, and the voice of innocence would soon demand its price. The days that followed were marked by the sadness that spread through the mansion. Clara, once full of energy, now remained in bed, refusing to play or smile. The silence in her room contrasted with the bustling corridors, as if all the brightness of the house had vanished. Her absence from daily routines was felt by everyone. The fever came as a reflection of her emotional pain. Clara trembled beneath the sheets, calling for Marcella between sobs. The servants took turns trying to care for her, but no gesture replaced the comfort of the woman who had raised her. Each night, her cries echoed through the room, begging for the return of the only presence that made her feel safe. The family pediatrician, Dr. William Harris, was urgently called. An experienced man, he examined the girl and concluded that the problem was not in her body, but in her heart. In a firm tone, he declared, "This girl doesn't need medicine. She needs stability in the one she loves." His words rang as a warning few were willing to hear. Edward, hardened by pride, dismissed the doctor's recommendations. To him, Clara's cries and refusals were nothing more than childish whims. He turned back to business with the same rigidity as always, believing time would resolve everything. His insensitivity only deepened the distance between him and his daughter. Isabella, meanwhile, saw Clara's illness as an inconvenient obstacle. Her expressions of concern were merely performances before the guests. In private, she showed irritation, as if the girl's frailty were a delay in her plans. More and more, she made it clear that Clara had no place in her future. The servants exchanged desperate looks in silence. Samuel, Mary, and the others recognized that the girl needed Marcella, but none dared say it aloud. The mansion's atmosphere became suffocating, marked by whispers and murmurs of restrained indignation. Clara, weakened by fever, clutched her toys as though they were substitutes for affection. In moments of delirium, she called for Marcella again and again, as if believing her caretaker would appear at any moment. The child's heart revealed what everyone already knew. Without love, health could not endure. And so the mansion, despite all its wealth, became a stage for sorrow. While Clara silently battled absence, a secret not yet revealed moved closer to the surface, ready to change the course of the story completely. The silence of the mansion began to weigh heavily on Edward. He noticed that although the house remained in order, something in his daughter's heart was broken. Clara no longer smiled, no longer ran through the corridors and avoided even looking at him. The emptiness left by Marcella's absence became more and more evident. The servants, once attentive, now acted mechanically. The sparkle in their eyes had vanished, replaced by a silent distance. It was as if they all carried the same question without the courage to speak it aloud. How far would Edward go for Isabella? This change in the atmosphere echoed a growing unease within him. One evening, returning home tired from an engagement, Edward found John Carter waiting discreetly. The loyal chauffeur could no longer bear the injustice. With steady hands, he handed over his phone, showing a recording he had made in secret. Isabella's voice, crystal clear, revealed the plot to frame Marcella. The words struck Edward like blows to the chest. He listened to every sentence, every cold laugh, every detail of the plan. Isabella's perfect mask crumbled before him, exposing the truth he had refused to see. For the first time, he realized he had condemned the wrong person and hurt those he loved most. That night, Edward could not sleep. He walked through the corridors of the mansion, reflecting on the choices he had made. Clara's weary eyes, the servants' hidden tears, and Marcella's wounded dignity all flooded his memory. It was as though the weight of his absence as a father had finally surfaced. Isabella, oblivious to the storm building inside Edward, continued to act as though she were the absolute mistress of the house. She displayed herself before guests, flawless in every detail. She had no idea that her own voice, secretly recorded, had already begun her imminent downfall. Edward, silent, began to watch his fiancée with new eyes. Every gesture, every word, every rehearsed smile now seemed false. The realization that he had been manipulated gnawed at his trust. Within him, a restrained fury grew, along with an intense desire to repair his mistakes. Regret was no longer just a feeling. It was becoming a call to action. Edward knew he had to confront Isabella and, above all, bring Marcella back. The time for silence was over, and the confrontation ahead promised to shake the very foundations of the house. Edward waited for the right moment to expose the truth. The heavy silence of the mansion was broken as he entered the main hall, where Isabella was speaking with some of the servants. His firm footsteps echoed across the marble floor, drawing everyone's attention. The look on his face left no doubt. The time for truth had come. He approached Isabella, holding the phone in his hand. With a steady voice, he asked, "Is there something you want to tell me?" The fiancée, startled, tried to mask it with a smile. But upon hearing her own voice recorded, plotting against Marcella, the color drained from her face. The clash between appearance and reality was instantaneous. Isabella tried to deny it, claiming it was a setup, but every contradiction betrayed her. Edward, before the gathered servants, described in detail everything he had uncovered. His fury, contained until then, erupted, not only revealing indignation but also regret for having been deceived. The servants watched in silence, their eyes fixed on the scene. For many, this was the moment they had been waiting for. The downfall of the woman who had spread fear and intrigue throughout the house. Each glance confirmed that Isabella's charade was finally laid bare. The once submissive atmosphere became a stage for justice. Edward's voice, heavy with authority, cut through the air. "You not only destroyed the trust in this house, but also tried to separate my daughter from the one who truly loves her." His words echoed like a sentence. Isabella, cornered, found no escape. Her arrogance gave way to humiliation before them all. He then announced the immediate end of the engagement. Silence was followed by murmurs of surprise and then by approving looks. Isabella, once so proud, was now reduced to collective disdain. The fall of her mask was definitive, leaving no doubt as to who she truly was. Meanwhile, Edward was already planning his next steps. His heart beat not only with anger, but with the determination to repair the harm he had caused. The memory of Clara's illness and Marcella's unjust expulsion fueled his resolve. It would not be enough to cast Isabella out. He needed to restore what had been lost. The confrontation had ended, but the most important battle was still ahead. Reconciliation with Marcella and reclaiming Clara's love would be Edward's true challenges. And the journey toward that reunion was about to begin. Edward left the mansion with a heavy heart, driven by the desire to repair his mistakes. After hours of searching, he arrived in a modest neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. standing before a humble house where Marcella lived with relatives. The contrast with the grandeur of the mansion was striking, yet there was a peace here he had not felt in a long time. When the door opened, Clara was the first to run forward. With tears in her eyes, the girl threw herself into Marcella's arms, hugging her tightly. Through sobs, she exclaimed, "Don't ever leave me again." The scene filled Edward's eyes with emotion, revealing the depth of the bond he had once tried to deny. Marcella, surprised, welcomed the girl into her embrace. Her expression was a mix of tenderness and caution, as though she still carried the scars of her humiliation. When she looked at Edward, her dignity remained intact, waiting for the words he had come to speak. Edward took a deep breath, struggling against his own shame. In a quiet voice, he declared, "I failed you both. I don't want to be just the businessman anymore. I want to be the father Clara deserves and the man who values your loyalty. Marcella." His words sounded like both a confession and a plea for forgiveness. Marcella listened in silence, reflecting on all that had happened. Her eyes showed compassion but also firmness. She replied calmly, making it clear that her priority was Clara. "I will come back, Edward, but understand this, my life will always be bound first to her well-being." Clara, still wrapped in her caretaker's arms, smiled for the first time in days. The brightness of her joy brought life back to the humble house. For Edward, that smile was proof that he was finally on the right path, even if the road to reconciliation was long. He promised, before them both, to reduce his travels and dedicate himself to his daughter. The absent millionaire was beginning to transform into a present father. The weight of business no longer seemed as important as the opportunity to rebuild his family. And so, in that modest home, a new chapter began. Not one of wealth or status, but of reconciliation and true presence. The promise made during that reunion would become the foundation of a different life, where love and loyalty finally took the place they had always deserved. And now that you've followed every detail of this story, here's the question. How many times in life have we also put aside what truly matters? How many times do we chase status, money, or recognition, forgetting what really gives life meaning? Love, loyalty, and true presence. This story isn't just about Edward, Isabella, Clara, and Marcella. It's about all of us, about choices that shape destinies and what we're willing to sacrifice in the name of power or family. And I want to know, what would you have done in Edward's place? Have you ever faced a situation where you had to choose between work and someone you love? Share your experience in the comments. Let's talk about it. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss the next stories that will move you, because what's coming next is even more intense.